All right, good morning. I'm sensing a tiredness amongst us. I perceived it in class this morning with red eyes and downtrodden faces. So for a second, just look at me and do what I do. You ready? All right. You thought I was going to have you stand and greet. No, I'm not going to all the stand and greet stuff. Skip all that. Having said that, and a big flashy smile, we love bad news. We love bad news. We are motivated by bad news. Bad news speaks to us. Some of your best memories are of bad times. Think about it. When you had a vacation that went perfectly, every detail went exactly as planned, you hardly remember it. But when you planned a vacation and things went horribly wrong, you remember so many details of that bad vacation, and you look back on it and you laugh because it didn't work out, and you have all these great memories of things that didn't go according to plan. We love bad news, and people who actually write news articles know that we like bad news. That's why when you watch the news, it's mainly bad. You don't watch a 15-minute segment on sunny skies, but you will if the hills are on fire, right? You'll watch every detail of it. If a storm went through an area and took out a bunch of homes, you'll watch that. What you won't watch are 10 minutes of clips where no tornado passed, but you will if a tornado went through. Right? We like bad news. It calls to us, and in some ways it's kind of how we're wired. It's a safety mechanism because when things are going wrong, we need to react to stay safe. But people who write news articles, they know this, and so most of the time, even if the news article is good, they'll put a negative word in it. Even if it's sharing good news, it'll use negative words like no more disease found in, because we like the word no. Unless we're asking for something. Other than that, we like the word no. We like it so much that we've developed clickbait. You've fallen for clickbait, right? Where you're trying to do something online and your homepage shows up and it gives you all these news articles. One of them might say something like this: pastor's activity reported by therapist to local authorities as he admits to, click here to read more. Oh, what did he do? What did his mandatory reporter do? Who did he say? What happened? And you want to click on it. And you click on it, says, as he admits to helping young animals in need and finding shelter after the, like, oh, okay. But they got you to read the article because they made you at least think it was bad. We see clickbait all over the place. And the funny thing about it is, you know it's clickbait and you still click on it. I do. I still click on stuff where I'm like, sometimes I do it just to see if my suspicions are correct. Right? You'll read something like, new scientific discovery overturns everything we've ever known. Read more, and you click. It's like, everything you've ever known if you didn't know anything to begin with. Like it didn't really do what it said it was going to do, but we still read it. We love bad news, and we tend to react to things that are bad. We like to hear things that are bad. You've never gotten in trouble for sharing positive information about someone else in private? They're such a wonderful person. I love hanging out with them. They're great. There's no rule against that. But when you want to talk bad about someone, right, you tend to share bad things. Did you hear what so-and-so did? You love to hear it and you love to share it. You love sharing bad news. They just love to hit that share button. Matter of fact, we have many technologies that have been developed from bad things that happen in life, specifically war. War has been a driving force. I do have a few notes here. I don't typically use notes, but I didn't want to say something incorrectly. So here are my notes for my sermon, if you were curious. If you want to borrow them afterwards, you're welcome to have them. Radar. Radar is something we use all the time. You might not even realize it. Police officers use it to detect speed. Radar is used to detect objects. We use radar in everyday life, but radar was developed during World War II to try and find incoming enemy artillery. Because we got to find where these dangerous things are coming from. Something bad has driven us to try and develop some sort of new technology. I was listening to a podcast. If you ever listen to Star Talk, I was listening to a podcast and they were debating, why don't people focus more on the positives of humanity and let the positives drive us to innovation? And someone says it's not positivity that drives us to innovation, it's negativity that drives us to innovation. Jet engines were developed. The idea was there, but they were developed during World War II because we wanted to have a faster plane than our enemies. Radar developed because we want to find them before they find us. How many of you, I'm going to pull my cell phone out, I forgot, it's right there. How many of you have a computating device in your purse or your pocket? Only 4 of you have cell phones. That's what I was referring to. Cell phones? Oh, cell phones. Yeah, I have one of those. Do you know who the original calculators were? Women. Women who were calculating ballistic trajectories during the war. But in order to be even more precise, we developed computation. Machines that could do the computing for us. We could be even more precise and even quicker so that we could kill our enemies before they killed us. More accurately. And now we camera around in our phones because they do all the computing for us. Computing for you what streets you have to take and how long it'll take for you to get there. Computations about how much money you'll have to save if you want to retire ever. We camera around in our pockets when they used to be used to determine what velocity to send a missile so it could reach a target in a certain amount of time and be the right place. We use them to decipher codes when the enemies in war would speak to one another in code, and with computation devices we could break or decipher their codes. We love, but we don't love. It's a love-hate relationship we have with bad news. And the problem with bad news is even though it might drive us to innovate, it also can drive us a little crazy. Because we can get so focused on all these bad things that we really do forget that there are good things. There are good things happening all around us. As Mr. Rogers said, whenever you see a tragedy, open up your eyes and look for the good people. You'll find people doing good everywhere after something has gone horribly wrong. But it's easy to become blind to the good when we predominantly focus on the bad. And it can damage us. We're going to look at a story. As Chris said, I get paid to tell Bible stories, and so here's one right here. 2 Kings chapter 6, where there was one gentleman in this story who had a really hard time seeing the good because there was just so much bad around. The king of Aram was at war with Israel. He would often review his plans with his officers. He would say, I'm going to set up my camp in a certain place. So from time to time, he's like, I'm going to set up camp over here. And he would tell his people, and he would say, okay, now I'm going to set my camp up over here. And he would tell his advisors, and they'd make a plan. But every time, as we'll read on, every time he makes a plan to go to a place, something happens, and what's there isn't what's not there. He's expecting something to be there, and it's not there. Whatever's supposed to be happening, it's not happening, so he becomes very suspicious that someone in his cabinet is revealing secrets to his enemies. He would tell his advisors or his officers, I'm going to set up my camp in a certain place. Elisha, the man of God, sent a message to the king of Israel. Elisha said, try and stay away from that place. Aram's army is going to be down there. And so he's warning Israel, Aram's going to go there, leave that place. Or if you had plans to go to that place, don't go there anymore. The king of Israel checked on the place the man of God had told him about. Time after time, Elisha warned the king. So the king was on guard in those places. Every time the king of Aram would show up with his officers, the people were ready for him, or they just weren't there at all. All of that made the king of Aram very angry, as you might imagine. He sent for his officers. He said to them, "Tell me, which of us is on the side of the king of Israel?" That's what you would do if every time you made a plan, it got thwarted every single time, and you announced to your officers, "This is what we're going to do," and every time it didn't happen the way you wanted it to happen, you would become suspicious and say, "One of you is sharing secrets." There's no other way they could know what's happening other than one of you being a traitor. So which one is it? Kind of a bold way to go about it, as if someone's going to say, "Got me. It was me. Kill me now." Which of us is on the side of the king of Israel? "You are my king and master," said one of his officers. "None of us is on Israel's side, but Elisha is a prophet in Israel. He tells the king of Israel even the words you speak in your own bedroom," which was definitely a violation of his rights to privacy. Could you imagine being told this horrible news that there is a prophet in the other town of your enemy, and he knows the words, even the words you speak privately in your own bedroom? He hears everything. "Go and find out where he is," the king ordered. "Then I can send my men and capture him." The report came back. The officer said, "He is in Dothan." Then the king sent horses and chariots and a strong army there. They went at night and surrounded the city. Things aren't looking so good for Israel. Certainly not looking so good for Elisha. He's surrounded by the enemy. They figured him out. The servant of the man of God got up the next morning, went out early, and saw that an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. Now, this is the servant of Elisha. "Oh no, my master," the servant said. "What can we do?" That's how you would react, correct? That's how you react sometimes when you open up your online bank account and you see $0. "Oh no, what can I do?" This is a natural thought. When we're presented with really, really bad news, this is a natural thought to have. What can I do about it? It's one of the reasons we react so strongly to bad news is because we need to find solutions. You don't need to find solutions to things that are right. There's no action to be taken there, but when things are going wrong, you need to find a way to solve it. So he says, "Oh, my master, what can we do?" "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And I can imagine the servant's face when he goes, "Who's with us?" There's nobody there. Elisha is not a military leader. He doesn't have soldiers surrounding him. He doesn't have an entourage of people with swords and shields and chariots and horses. He doesn't have anything. It's just him and a servant. He says, "There's more of us than there are of them." I counted, there's more than 2 of them. "What do you mean there's more of us than there are of them?" "It's just us, Elisha. There's nobody else around. What are you talking about?" Elisha prayed, "Lord, open my servant's eyes so that he can see." Then the Lord opened his eyes. It's an important detail as you read this story, just to nerd out a little bit. His servant could see. He went out and he saw that they were surrounded. He came back and said, "Listen to what I saw." It's not that he's blind, but he's blind. Later on, we'll find some guys that get blinded. That's not that they're blind, but they're blind. You'll see what I mean. "Lord, open my servant's eyes so he can see." Then the Lord opened his eyes. We see something very similar in Luke chapter 24 when Jesus is on the road to Emmaus and he's walking with the 2 travelers, Cleopas and his companion, and they're going down the road. And it says they can't see Jesus. Their eyes haven't been opened. They don't know who Jesus is. They physically can see. They can see they're talking to a man. They can see the road they're traveling on. They can see where they're going. What they can't see is that Jesus is Jesus. They had to have their eyes opened. Adam and Eve had their eyes opened. His servant has his eyes opened to a new reality that he previously could not see. Elisha's servant looked up and saw the hills. He saw that Elisha was surrounded by horses and chariots made of fire. Aram's army came down toward Elisha. Then he prayed to the Lord, "Make these soldiers blind." You'll notice I changed the word blind there a little bit. The word blind isn't quite the right word. He bedazzled them. We don't really have a good way in English or even in Spanish to say it. It's almost like they were enchanted to where they weren't able to see the reality of the situation. It says, "Make these soldiers blind." So the Lord made them blind, just as Elisha had prayed. They were blind like his servant had previously been blind. Seeing, but blind. Elisha told them, "This isn't the right road." I don't know why. I'm not a Star Wars fan at all, but this just reminds me of a Jedi mind trick. I can't even remember the last time I watched anything Star Wars related at all, but these are not the drones you're looking for. I don't know. See, I don't even know how to quote it right. Is it drones or clones? I don't even remember what the line is. But it reminds me of that. This is not the right road. This is not the road you're looking for. This isn't the right city. Follow me. I'll lead you. Right? But in reality, it's not like today where they didn't get on Facebook or Instagram or previously able to get on TikTok and look up who is the man of God that lives in. They don't know what he looks like. They don't really even know who they're looking for. They don't know who he is. How are they going to know him? So, of course, when they show up, it's kind of a funny picture. They show up right at Elisha's house. He goes, "Oh, you guys are looking for it? I'll take you. Don't you worry about it. I'll take you. This is a wrong road. This isn't even the right city." And they're, "Oh, man, we totally blew it. Yeah, please take us." So he led them. Says, "Let me take you to the man you're looking for." And he led them to Samaria. They entered the city. Then Elisha said, "Lord, open the eyes of these men." So do not picture Elisha leading them like they are blind men. Hold everyone in a chain, holding hands, and he's slowly guiding them to Samaria. That's not what's happening. They can see, but they can't see. Lord, open their eyes of these men. Help them see again. Then the Lord opened their eyes. They looked around, and there they were inside of Samaria. Now, this might not mean much, but they weren't planning on taking on an army. They were planning on taking out one guy. There were plenty of them to take out one guy and his servant. There weren't nearly enough to take out a group of soldiers waiting for them in Samaria. They've been ambushed. They didn't know where they were going. They couldn't see. The king of Israel saw them, so he asked Elisha, "Should I kill them? I need your advice. You're like a father to me. Should I kill them?" This reminds me of another story in Scripture where Jesus had just left Samaria. And the Samaritans had rejected Jesus, and his disciples said, "Jesus, should we kill them? Should we call down fire from heaven and consume them?" We find a very similar answer to that question here. "Should I kill them?" the king asks. "I need your advice. We got them right where we want them. There's way more of us than there are of them. Should we take them out now? They are the enemy. Don't kill them," he answered. Now, this is a little unusual for Old Testament. A lot of Old Testament passages would say, "Yep," right? "Go ahead." This one says, "No, don't kill them," he answered. "Would you kill people you have captured with your own sword or bow?" Now, the answer is no. If you've captured them, you've captured them. They're prisoners of war now. You don't just kill them. If you wouldn't do it to them, why would you think about doing it to this group of people? Put some food and water in front of them. Then they can eat and drink. They can go back to their master. This is a fascinating story. So the king of Israel prepared a great feast for them. After they had finished eating and drinking, he sent them away, and they returned to their master. It's easy to let our present darkness blind us to the eternal light of God. It's real easy to feel like that servant of Elisha, where you look out and all you see is bad. Everything you see and everywhere you look is just gloom and doom. And I thought of this lesson because of the budget meeting that Chris mentioned last week that happened. And it's real easy to look at a set of numbers on a piece of paper and say, things aren't so great. What are we going to do? It's easy to get depressed. It's easy to get depressed in your own life when things are falling apart and you think, what am I going to do? And everything around you just seems like it's bad and going the wrong direction. There's nothing good happening. But maybe we need to have our eyes opened. Open to new realities that aren't immediately perceivable to us. Maybe we need to have our eyes and our minds open to see that there is a God at work and on the move in our lives, even in those dark moments. Because life is filled with dark moments. Moments that are scary, moments that are hard, moments when you don't know what you're going to do. You don't have a plan. You're sitting there. You know what I'm talking about. Maybe we should learn to train our minds to not just focus on the bad news. Focus on the good news. Greater is us who is in me than he who is in the world. The light came into the world, but the world could not extinguish the light. Paul wrote many letters from prison. He had a lot of free time. And most of his letters, you could say even all of his letters he wrote from prison, are not reflective of a person who seems to be in prison. One of the best and most encouraging letters we have is the book of Philippians, and it was written from a jail cell in chains, with darkness all around. There's no good news. There's nothing physical happening in Paul's life that makes him say, things are not that bad. All I need to do is just chin up. All I need to do is just smile. And yet he writes these words. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, these are not the natural things you sit around and think about. Our minds have been programmed, in a sense, to focus on the opposite of these things. And Paul, in prison, alone, or very few people with him, encouraging the brothers in Philippi, says, brothers and sisters, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think on these things. Because you may remember that Paul also had his eyes blinded. But then his eyes were opened. And he was a new man. It's kind of common Christian parlance to say, well, Paul went from Saul to Paul. And technically that's not true, but it's an easy way to remember that he was once one guy, but now he's a different guy. His eyes are open. He sees a new reality that he didn't see before. And as he sits there in prison, the very place he used to put people, as he sits there now himself, he says, whatever is good, noble, lovely, praiseworthy. Think of these things. Spend your time meditating on these things because your eyes have been opened. And you can see the good even though you're surrounded by the bad. So my encouragement to you this morning is think on these things. Do not get so overwhelmed by the darkness that you may be experiencing that you forget that there is light in the world. There's goodness in the world. And you may be going through night right now, but the sun will rise. The sun will rise, and things will get better. Think on these things. Don't spend your time thinking about the bad news. Think about the good that God is doing. Amen.